On that Saturday morning, with the clear sky and a sun gently warming the air, everything was set for the yard sale I decided to organize while my husband, David, was away on a business trip. It was one of those spontaneously conceived ideas that somehow seemed perfect. My mother and my sisters, Ava and Lily, agreed immediately. The proximity of our houses made my spacious backyard the ideal place to gather the items that, despite no longer having a place in our lives, could find a new purpose with someone else. There was nothing particularly remarkable among the items for sale: books already read, forgotten clothes, some old furniture, and children's toys that had lost their appeal, all arranged in a way to attract curious glances. The sale started lively, with neighbors and strangers wandering among the tables, seeking some hidden treasure among our personal antiquities. That's when he appeared. A man of ordinary appearance, with nothing in his hands, approached with a gaze that somehow made me feel a twinge of discomfort. His initial approach was calm, almost disinterested, but there was something in his gaze that didn't sit right with me. When he approached again, complimenting my eyes in a way that made me even more uncomfortable, I tried to maintain courtesy despite the growing sense of alarm within me. His insistence on trying to establish a more personal connection, even suggesting that we go out, was when the internal alarm sounded louder. I made it clear that I was married and not interested, hoping that would put an end to the interaction. But his reaction to downplay the significance of marriage only increased my irritation. Just when I thought the matter was settled, the arrival of a woman, echoing his words and hinting that I should forget about my husband to spend time with her and this Zachary character, was the peak of strangeness. The connection between the two became evident, and my response to her was as direct as my patience allowed. Despite the tension, the rest of the day passed without further incidents, although I couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched. Dinner at Ava's house was a bomb, a night of laughter and shared memories that made me forget, for a few hours, the peculiar events of that day. However, returning home, the discovery of the garage door open brought back all the anxiety. The sudden activation of the house's interior lighting was enough to prompt us to call the police immediately. The hurried escape of the intruders, confirmed to be the man and woman from the yard sale, left a mixture of relief and perplexity. The act of vandalism against our wedding photo was disturbing, more for what it symbolized than for the material damage. In the following days, with David still away and me seeking some sense in those events, I reinforced the security of our home with cameras, determined not to allow the sense of vulnerability to take over our sanctuary. On a beautiful summer day, full of sunshine and with a gentle breeze blowing, my wife, Emily, and I decided it was the perfect time to go in search of some good deals. Yard sales are our favorite pastime. We love the thrill of hunting for treasures among other people's junk. I consider myself a master of bargains, always on the lookout for good deals. I still remember the time I found a set of left-handed golf clubs for a steal. Those little victories are what drive me. That day, as we roamed the streets of our neighborhood, we stumbled upon a sale that looked more like a massive clearance of an entire house. The property was large and cluttered with objects of all kinds, managed by a couple who seemed to be just over 30. It was while chatting with the man, who introduced himself as Tom, that I discovered the situation was a bit more complicated than a simple yard sale. The house belonged to his father, an elderly gentleman, who watched everything from a nearby chair. Tom shared with us that his father was dealing with memory issues and would soon be moving in with them. They wanted to empty the house, renovate it, and then rent it out. As I rummaged through the items for sale, my eyes lit up when I saw a military sword, incredibly well crafted, with engraved details and a handle shaped like an eagle, appearing to be made of pure gold. Driven by curiosity, I inquired about the price. Tom, with an air of disinterest, said he would sell it to me for $25. Without hesitation, I handed him $30 and walked away with my new acquisition, feeling like the greatest adventurer. As we were leaving, I noticed Tom's father getting up, with a look that mixed concern and irritation. I saw the two of them arguing from afar, but honestly, the excitement of having found something so unique made me quickly forget about that moment. Later that same night, we were enjoying a barbecue in our backyard with some friends. The conversation inevitably revolved around the sword I had bought. Brimming with pride, I rushed inside to fetch it and show it off. Everything was perfect until, suddenly, Emily let out a piercing scream. We all turned towards the sound and saw the man from the yard sale, Tom's father, entering our yard like a whirlwind, his eyes fixed on the sword lying on the table. He advanced with a terrifying determination, and I could barely get between him and the sword. What followed was total chaos, with him trying desperately to retrieve the sword while I tried desperately to calm him down without causing him harm. It was a moment of pure adrenaline and confusion. The police arrived within minutes, alerted by Emily. Tom's father was convinced that I had stolen the sword, but I managed to explain the situation calmly. When Tom arrived, he apologized incessantly for the incident. I decided not to press charges, understanding the delicate situation of the gentleman. The most critical point of the night occurred as we discussed the incident. Tom's father, in a moment of distraction on our part, attempted to grab the sword again. Luckily, Emily saw in time and alerted us, avoiding further confusion. It happened a few weeks ago, and to this day, I try to process the facts, wondering how someone could be so malicious without apparent reason. It was a typical spring morning, and my family decided to have one of those yard sales to get rid of things we no longer used. It was a common event in our neighborhood in the United States, especially at the beginning of the outdoor sales season. My wife, Julia, and I always enjoyed these occasions to declutter and also to find some hidden treasures in other sales. Everything was going smoothly, with the neighborhood enjoying the sunny day to sift through items among the clutter we had laid out. There was a pleasant sense of community in the air, with laughter and conversations filling our backyard. However, in the middle of the afternoon, an older gentleman caught my attention. He must have been around 60 years old, perhaps more, and stood out not only because of his age but also because of his weathered appearance and unkempt white hair, which gave him the air of an eccentric scientist, only with a much less friendly vibe. This man wandered around the sale without really looking at the items. His interest seemed to lie elsewhere. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed him looking more at the house than at the merchandise for sale. Initially, I shrugged off the situation, thinking maybe he was just curious. But when I saw him peering through the front window, the feeling of discomfort grew within me. I decided to confront him directly, telling him he was too close to the house and that if he had no interest in anything, he'd better leave. He stared at me with empty eyes and, without saying a word, walked away. However, instead of actually leaving, he stood at the end of the street, as if waiting for something. Eventually, he disappeared from my sight, and the incident dissolved into the hustle and bustle of the day. That night, as I recounted the strange encounter to Julia, she reacted with surprise and said she had also seen him, adding that the man had made her feel uncomfortable. She had noticed him lurking around the side of the house while helping an elderly lady with her purchases. At that moment, we thought maybe he was just disoriented. Before going to bed that night, I checked the locks twice, a premonition telling me it was the best thing to do. Unfortunately, my precaution proved justified. We were awakened at 2 in the morning by a crash followed by screams from outside. My heart raced. Julia clung to me as I rushed to the window to see what was happening. Outside, our neighbor John was chasing someone with a baseball bat in hand, yelling for someone to call the police. Without hesitation, I ran outside, only to find John panting, saying he had seen someone trying to break into our house. The police arrived within minutes. John explained that he had been in the garage when he saw the intruder trying to force open the window of our bedroom. The description he gave matched exactly that of the man from the yard sale. My stomach churned as I realized the danger we were in without even knowing it. I'm planning to propose to Julia soon, and one of our first actions as fiancés will be to move out of this neighborhood. The idea that this man is still out there, possibly watching us, is unbearable. Since I was a child, I have always been fascinated by yard sales and estate auctions. I grew up in a family where money was tight, and these sales were the opportunity to find toys and books at affordable prices. Over time, this passion turned into a curiosity about others' collections, discovering everything from vintage Disney snow globes to stamps almost 100 years old. For the past 8 years, some neighbors and I have organized a large community yard sale. What started small now involves about 50 families from the neighborhood, attracting people from neighboring communities. My wife, Sarah, has a keen eye for collectibles, so we always have interesting items to sell. 3 years ago, in July, during one of these sales, we experienced a story I will never forget. Our ads in newspapers and social media clearly stated, "No early buyers," as we usually are still setting up before 8 a.m. On the day, while my husband, Mike, enjoyed his cup of coffee before starting remote work, I was setting up items in the garage. Around 7 a.m., a bang on the door made me rush to answer it. Before me stood a middle-aged man, insisting on seeing the items for sale, claiming he had come for the collectibles. Despite my explanation about the sale's start time, he seemed frustrated and left with a rude comment. The sales day started busy, but around 10 a.m., the flow of customers slowed down. That's when the same man from the morning reappeared, now with a smile on his face, as if nothing had happened. He bought some baseball cards and asked about more items but insisted on knowing if we had more to sell inside the house. After a quick consultation with Mike, I informed him that everything for sale was already on display. During lunch, we saw the same man return in his rusty brown pickup truck. He again insisted on seeing if there were more items for sale, this time asking to come inside and take a look. Mike was firm in refusing, and the man finally gave up and left. We decided to cancel the second day of the sale due to the success of the first. The next day, I went to help a neighbor, Debbie, with her sale, but found her garage closed and her visibly shaken. Someone had broken into her garage overnight and stolen several valuable items. The description Debbie and her husband gave of the thief's vehicle matched the brown pickup truck of the man who had visited our sale. I shared my experience with them, and together we reported it to the police, but unfortunately, the thief was never caught, nor were the items recovered. In that transitional period, Emily and I were thrilled and eager with the idea of finally having our own space, a home to call ours. Emily's parents' generosity in lending us the house and the opportunity to leave our mark on it filled us with dreams and plans. The yard sale was conceived as a rite of passage, a way to bid farewell to an era and welcome another. However, the sale also brought an unexpected encounter that would change our perception of security and privacy. The couple who approached us on that last day had something enigmatic and unsettling about them. The man, with his shiny, tight blue suit, seemed like a caricature, but his seriousness when talking about collecting haunted items froze my smile. His partner, whose appearance resembled Gothic movie characters, merely observed him, as if validating his eccentricities. Thinking it was a prank, I reacted with humor, but their reaction to my laughter was chillingly cold. Their abrupt departure in a red car seemed like the end of that peculiar interaction, but it was only the beginning of a surveillance that defied any logical explanation. Throughout the day, that red car reappeared, slowly passing by our house several times, like a predator circling its prey. Each pass heightened my sense of being watched, a feeling that Emily tried to rationalize, attributing it to my guilty conscience for having mocked the couple earlier. The decision to check the locks and ensure the security of the house that first night was more instinctive than rational. My nighttime encounter with the parked car, and the discovery of the blue suit on the back seat, turned my unease into concrete fear. It was as if those strangers were sending us a silent but clear message: we are here, and we are watching. The car's abrupt departure in the early hours of the morning, followed by its return at dawn, only to disappear again in the darkness, was a cycle of psychological terror that neither of us was prepared to face. We stayed awake all night, questioning our choices, our safety, and even our sanity. Those moments of tension, the feeling of vulnerability in the face of the unknown, made us rethink many things about our existence and how we interact with the world around us. Although nothing happened physically, the invasion of our mental peace was profound and lasting. A year has passed since that unsettling experience. The red car and the eccentric couple have never been seen again, but the legacy of their presence in our lives remains. We have learned to value security not only as a physical measure but as an emotional and psychological need. This episode served as a dark reminder that sometimes, true fear lies not in what is said or done, but in what is insinuated and left to the imagination. And while I hope never to encounter figures as disturbing as that couple again. Well, folks, we've come to the end of another thrilling journey together. I hope you've experienced that spine-tingling sensation as much as I have. Stories like these remind us that sometimes reality can be more disturbing than fiction. If you enjoyed exploring the unknown and unraveling mysteries with me, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give the video a like. That really helps us keep bringing you more content. And, of course, if you have your own tales of terror or dark theories, don't keep them to yourselves. Send them to our email, which is available in the description. I'm always eager to read what you have to share.